Daniil Medvedev's first-round match at the 2025 US Open was supposed to be straightforward. Instead, it turned into one of the wildest scenes of the tournament's opening day. The Russian was facing Frenchman Benjamin Bonzi when an unusual moment sparked complete chaos. Leading 2-0, in the third set, Bonzi was leading 5-4 and was serving for the match. He missed his first serve, but just as the point ended, a cameraman courtside started moving away. The distraction was clear, and the umpire decided to let Bonzi replay the serve. That meant instead of facing a second serve, he was given another first serve. Medvedev was furious. He immediately marched toward the chair and launched into a fiery rant at the umpire. "Are you a man? Are you a man? Why are you shaking? What's wrong, huh?" he shouted, pointing directly at the official. Then, turning his attention to the cameraman, he added, "Guys, he wants to leave. He gets paid by the match, not by the hour." The outburst stunned the crowd. What followed was even more dramatic. Boos rained down on Medvedev for over 5 straight minutes. Rather than calming down, the atmosphere kept building, with Medvedev glaring back as the fans made their feelings clear. It wasn't the first time Medvedev has clashed with New York fans. Back in 2019, he famously played the villain role at the US Open, egging the crowd on while admitting he enjoyed the boos. Since then, his relationship with the tournament's fans has always been unpredictable, sometimes playful, sometimes hostile. But this moment against Bonzi may have been the loudest backlash yet. The boos were so prolonged that the match paused while the noise filled Arthur Ashe's stadium. Bonzi, standing quietly on the baseline, waited for the storm to pass. The umpire tried to restore order, but the jeers just kept rolling in. Commentators were stunned, with many saying they had never seen anything like it at a Grand Slam. Some called Medvedev's rant over the top, while others argued he had a point. Distractions like cameramen moving around are not supposed to happen mid-point. Either way, the drama completely overshadowed the tennis itself. For Medvedev, the moment highlighted both his fiery personality and the pressure he feels at big tournaments. For the fans, it became instant theater, a scene that will be remembered long after the scoreline is forgotten. As the match went on, the boos slowly faded, but the damage was done. Medvedev had once again turned himself into the main story of the night, proving that at the US Open, controversy follows him as much as victories. If there's one thing Daniil Medvedev has learned at the US Open, it's that New York crowds don't forget. On day 1, when he blew up at the umpire and mocked the cameraman during his match with Benjamin Bonzi, the reaction inside Arthur Ashe Stadium was immediate and intense. For around 6 minutes, the boos poured down on him. It wasn't just a few scattered voices, it was the whole stadium joining together. Some fans waved their arms, others shouted back at him, and the noise was deafening. The atmosphere quickly turned from a tennis match into something closer to a wrestling arena, with Medvedev playing the heel. What made it even more unusual was how long it lasted. Normally, boos come and go after a heated moment. Here, the crowd kept it going, almost feeding off Medvedev's defiance. Every time he looked at the umpire or muttered under his breath, the fans responded even louder. Bonzi, caught in the middle, just stood by quietly and waited, almost looking embarrassed for his opponent. On social media, clips of the meltdown spread instantly. Fans posted videos captioned with "Classic Medi" and "Never change." Others were harsher, calling his rant childish and saying he crossed a line by mocking the umpire. Tennis writers described it as chaos in Ashe, with some comparing it to his famous 2019 meltdown when he trolled the crowd on his way to the final. To be fair, some defended him. A few pointed out that the umpire did break normal protocol by awarding Bonzi a new first serve after the cameraman's movement. They argued Medvedev had a right to be upset, but even those voices admitted his delivery, screaming, "Are you a man?" at the umpire, wasn't going to win him any sympathy. This wasn't just about one point, it was about Medvedev's ongoing love-hate relationship with the US Open crowd. Ever since 2019, he's been cast as both villain and entertainer in New York. Some fans secretly love the drama he brings, while others are tired of what they see as constant complaining. What's certain is that Medvedev knows how to get a reaction, whether he means to or not. Commentators noted that the tension might even fire him up. Medvedev has admitted in the past that he can play better when the crowd is against him, using the noise as motivation. But there's always a risk too. Sometimes the energy helps, and sometimes it spirals into distraction. Against Bonzi, it was clear the boos shook him, at least for a few games. As the match wore on, the tennis slowly took over again. Still, the moment lingered. Fans leaving the stadium weren't talking about winners and unforced errors. They were talking about Medvedev's rant and the wall of boos that followed. What is even more interesting is that Bonzi was leading 2-0 in sets and was about to win the match, but this drama lasted 6 minutes, throwing Frenchman off his game, which allowed Medvedev to win that set and the next one 6-0, forcing a 5th set. At the end, Bonzi did manage to pull it off in the last game and took the victory. Medvedev was visibly furious, and during these sets, he also kept doing weird gesticulations to the crowd, and ultimately his rage resulted in him smashing his racket at the end of the match. This was a very sad picture to see, as Medvedev was seen as someone who can really do a lot on tennis, but with his 3rd in a row first round exit and with frustrations rising to a new level, we have to question what is next for Medvedev. The irritation could be seen in his team's faces too, as when the camera panned to their box, the look on their face was as if they were embarrassed by his antics. To top everything off, as Bonzi was doing his post-match interview, Medvedev was very unsportsmanlike and left the court while the interview was still ongoing. It was the first big headline of this year's US Open, and with Medvedev, you get the feeling it won't be the last. For Daniil Medvedev, moments like the meltdown against Benjamin Bonzi seem to follow him wherever he goes at the US Open. Some players are remembered for smooth dominance on court. Medvedev, on the other hand, is building a reputation as one of the sport's great entertainers, even if it's not always intentional. Think back to 2019, when he openly trolled the New York crowd after matches, telling fans their boos only made him stronger. That year, he reached the final and almost pulled off the title. Since then, his relationship with Flushing Meadows has been unpredictable. Sometimes he's cheered, other times he's showered with jeers. What never changes is that he leaves people talking. This latest incident with the cameraman only adds to the story. On paper, it was a small moment, a missed first serve, a replay given, an argument, but in true Medvedev style, it became theater. His sharp words, his glare at the umpire, and the roaring boos turned a routine early round match into the headline of day one. For most players, that kind of chaos would be a nightmare. For Medvedev, it's become part of his identity. The big question now is whether this energy will hurt or help him as the tournament goes on. Medvedev has admitted in the past that he can feed off negativity, using it to fire up his game, but it's a risky balance. Sometimes the boos give him fuel, other times they distract him and push him off track. At 2025's US Open, with the spotlight hotter than ever, the margin between motivation and meltdown could decide his run. There's also the bigger picture to consider. With Novak Djokovic's future uncertain, Rafael Nadal no longer in the slam race, and Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner carrying the new era flag, where does Medvedev fit? He already has one US Open crown, one in 2021, but his path to another is tougher now. Against younger, fresher opponents, moments of focus matter more than ever. Can he still handle the grind of 2 weeks in New York while carrying the weight of his own reputation as tennis's wild card? Fans, though, wouldn't have it any other way. Love him or hate him, Medvedev gives people something to react to. Tennis thrives on rivalries and personalities, and in a sport that can sometimes feel too polite, Medvedev's rawness stands out. The boos, the rants, the sarcastic smiles, they've become part of the US Open's theater. What happens next is anyone's guess. Maybe he'll ride the wave of controversy deep into the second week. Maybe the pressure and noise will drag him down early. Either way, Daniil Medvedev has once again shown that when he's in New York, it's never just about the tennis.